Ethan Walker had just come home from another grueling day at work when the world he thought he knew shattered in seconds. The soft thud of tires on gravel pulled him to the front door. What he saw made his breath hitch in his throat. There she was, his wife, Scarlett, standing smugly in the driveway, wearing tight jeans and a face full of makeup she hadn't worn in months. But she wasn't alone. Leaning against a glossy black Cadillac Escalade was a man Ethan had never seen before. Tall, tan, polished to the point of absurdity. With his arm draped around two boys who clearly weren't his, he oozed arrogance like cologne. Behind Ethan, his 12-year-old son, Mason, peeked from the doorway, confusion clouding his innocent eyes. Scarlett flipped her platinum hair and said with zero shame, "Ethan, this is Brandon. And his sons. They'll be staying with us for a while. Let's stop pretending this marriage still means anything." The audacity of it, not just betrayal, but an invasion. Brandon and his sons lugged in suitcases like they already owned the place. Scarlett tossed her purse on the couch like she hadn't just set fire to everything Ethan had been holding together. And then the blow that made his vision blur. "Brandon keeps me warm now," she added with a smirk. Ethan stood frozen, gutted, as Mason gripped his hand, whispering, "Dad, who are they?" Something inside Ethan twisted. Rage, sorrow, humiliation. But before he could say a word, Mason stepped forward, his voice trembling but firm. "You're not my mom anymore." And just like that, the mask fell. Ethan didn't get the chance to speak. Before he could even gather a thought, Mason took another step forward, standing between him and Scarlett, like a tiny shield made of fury and heartbreak. "I saw your messages," Mason said, his voice cracking but growing louder with each word. "You told Brandon I was a problem. You said I remind you too much of Dad. You said I ruined your life." Scarlett's smirk vanished like smoke in the wind. Her face went from pale to red in a heartbeat. "You little brat," she snapped, her voice turning venomous. "You had no right to—" "He had every right," Ethan cut in, stepping forward now, his voice steel cold. "He watched everything fall apart. While you were busy playing house with your new toy, he was holding it together." Brandon, until then silent, tried to interject with a slick, rehearsed voice. "Look, man, it's not personal. Scarlett just wants to be happy." Ethan nearly laughed but clenched his fists instead. She wanted to feel something. Let's hope she feels the shame when she sees what she's done. Scarlett rolled her eyes. "Spare me the theatrics, Ethan. You were boring, predictable. I needed excitement. I needed a real man." Ethan turned to Brandon, eyebrows raised. "You mean this poser?" Brandon took a half step forward. "Maybe we should talk about this privately." "No," Ethan said firmly. "You brought this circus into my house. Let's keep it public." Scarlett narrowed her eyes. "You think a judge will take your side after this? You're threatening people in front of your kid." "I'm not threatening," Ethan said, his voice like ice. "I'm done, there's a difference." Just then Mason spoke again, his voice soft but unwavering. "Can I stay with you, Dad?" Scarlett spun around. "What? No, you're not picking sides." "I already did," Mason said. "The second you brought strangers into our house like we didn't matter." Scarlett lunged forward, grabbing Mason's arm. "You don't talk to me like that. I'm your mother." Ethan didn't raise his voice. He didn't shout. He just stepped forward and said, "Take your hands off my son." Scarlett froze. That tone, calm, final, stopped her dead. She let go. Brandon exhaled like he realized he was in over his head. Ethan stared her down. "Maybe you should have thought about what you were destroying before inviting chaos into our home." Scarlett grabbed her bag. "This isn't over." Ethan stepped aside. "No, it's just beginning." As they walked out, Brandon's younger son gave Mason a small wave. Mason didn't return it. He just watched them go, like a soldier remembering the moment the war truly began. Ethan locked the door. Silence fell. Then Mason wrapped his arms around him, shaking. "I'm sorry you had to see this," Ethan whispered. Mason held tighter. "She lost us, Dad, not the other way around." The door clicked shut behind Scarlett and Brandon. And for the first time in months, silence didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like a reset. Ethan stood there, hand still on the doorknob, while Mason leaned into him, breath shaky. They didn't say a word. No screaming, no crying, just silence. And that silence carried everything. Later that night, after Mason had fallen asleep on the couch, too exhausted to even make it to his room, Ethan walked quietly into his bedroom. He opened the top drawer of the nightstand, pulled out the manila folder he'd been building for months. He never wanted to use it. He hoped things would fix themselves. But tonight confirmed what his gut had whispered for weeks. Scarlett was never coming back. Not as the woman she used to be. Inside the folder, screenshots of text messages between Scarlett and Brandon, mocking Ethan and complaining about Mason. Hotel receipts from weekends she claimed to be visiting her sister. Bank transactions for expensive dinners in cities Ethan had never been to. Even an Instagram DM where Brandon bragged to a friend, "She was married to a ghost, now she's with me." Ethan closed the folder, spine straightening. The next morning, the air in the house felt different, like truth had swept through overnight, clearing out the lies. Mason sat at the table, stirring his cocoa, silent. Ethan placed the folder on the counter. "You don't have to worry, son," he said softly. "She's not coming back. And if she tries, I'm ready now." Mason nodded, but didn't look up. That afternoon, as if on cue, Ethan received a message from an unknown number. "Your behavior last night was abusive. You're unstable. I've contacted a lawyer. Do not contact me again. Scarlett." Ethan showed Mason. The boy blinked at the screen, then said, "She's lying again, right?" Ethan nodded. Every word. Scarlett wasn't done. That evening she returned, this time with 2 uniformed officers. Ethan opened the door, calm as stone. One officer stepped forward. "Mr. Walker, Miss Scarlett would like to collect personal belongings. We're just here to supervise." Ethan glanced at her, oversized sunglasses, fake sadness, and a designer tote clutched like it was dignity. "She needs bodyguards now?" he asked flatly. She smirked. "I'm protecting myself. You should have done that before you crawled into his bed." The officer stepped between them. "Let's keep this respectful." Ethan stepped aside. "Be my guest. Let the queen reclaim her perfume and lies." As Scarlett climbed the stairs, she muttered loud enough for the whole house to hear, "This place reeks of failure. How did I ever live here?" Ethan didn't answer, but something in him snapped. And this time it wasn't pain. It was clarity. Ethan stood by the doorway, arms crossed, watching Scarlett descend the stairs with her tote bag overflowing with expensive cosmetics, wrinkled clothes, and, of course, one of his watches. He pointed without emotion. "That's mine." Scarlett scoffed. "Please, you never wore it." "I will now." The officer looked at her. "Ma'am, if it belongs to Mr. Walker, you'll have to leave it." With a dramatic sigh, she yanked it off and tossed it onto the couch, like it was laced with poison. Then, in that same breath of false confidence, she said, "Brandon's going to propose soon. Just thought you should know." Ethan didn't flinch. He didn't laugh. He didn't cry. He just stared her down and said, "I already moved on." That hit her harder than she expected. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Just then, fate intervened. Mason came down the stairs holding a photo frame. Scarlett looked confused. "What's that?" she asked. He handed it to her. It was a picture of the 3 of them at his 5th birthday, frosting on his nose, Scarlett kissing his cheek, Ethan holding them both. A frozen moment from a time when things felt whole. "Keep it," Mason said, "so you remember what you threw away." Scarlett's mask cracked. For just a second, something real flickered in her eyes. Regret, maybe. But it was gone just as fast. The officer stepped in. "That's everything, ma'am." She turned and walked out without a word, clutching the frame like it burned. Ethan closed the door behind her, slower this time. Mason stood next to him, quiet. "I'm sorry," Ethan whispered. "You didn't deserve any of this." Mason hugged him tightly, burying his faded face into his chest. "You're all I need now, Dad." For a brief moment, Ethan felt peace, not joy, not closure, but clarity. The fog was gone. The lies had been stripped away. And beneath all that wreckage stood a man who hadn't broken. He'd adapted. The next morning, the silence in the house wasn't heavy. It was honest. The kind that comes after a storm, when the debris is still there, but the sky has cleared. They ate breakfast like two survivors. No one mentioned Scarlett, not even Mason. But Ethan could feel it. Questions were brewing behind that quiet stare. The day after Scarlett's dramatic visit, Ethan walked into his attorney's office with the manila folder under his arm. No rage, no desperation, just focus. His lawyer, Mr. Gaines, raised an eyebrow as he flipped through the documents. Screenshots, bank statements, call logs, hotel receipts, social media timestamps, all dated, labeled, organized. "Ethan," he said, closing the folder slowly, "this is a surgical strike." "I don't want war," Ethan replied. "I want full custody. I want peace for my son." "You'll get both." That same afternoon, the papers were filed. Divorce, custody, a restraining order pending the court's review. No more texts, no more appearances, no more control. Ethan didn't call Scarlett. He let the knock on Brandon's door speak for him. A court server handing over a thick envelope, while Scarlett sat inside pretending her fantasy wasn't unraveling. 3 days after her last message, Scarlett returned. No makeup, no arrogance. She stood at the door close to midnight, her voice trembling. "Can we talk?" Ethan stepped outside, shut the door behind him. "No. Brandon left me. I got the divorce papers. Maybe we rushed this, sis." Ethan let out a cold, quiet laugh. "You rushed. I just watched. I want to fix things for Mason." She touched his arm. Ethan stared at her, stepped back. "I already did, the day you walked out." He closed the door, leaving her in the cold, with nothing but her regret. 2 days later, she came again. This time in a tight dress, red lipstick, like she was trying to seduce the past. "Brandon and I broke up. I want to make things right. For our son." Ethan didn't blink. "I've filed for full custody. You'll get supervised visitation until Mason says otherwise." "You can't." "I already did." Right then, Mason stepped off the school bus. Scarlett smiled. "Hi, baby. Are you staying?" he asked. "I was hoping to." "No, you shouldn't," Mason said, firm. Scarlett froze. Her eyes welled up. But this time no one reached to comfort her. Mason walked inside. Ethan followed. And for the first time, the house truly felt like theirs. Ethan didn't even flinch when Brandon, yes, Brandon, called 2 days later from a blocked number. "Hey man, I think we should talk." Ethan didn't answer. He and Mason were already driving out of town. Just the two of them. No phones, no tension. Just fishing rods and the sound of water lapping against the shore. They didn't talk much at first, but after a while, Mason looked up and asked, "Do you think she ever loved us?" Ethan stared at the lake, then answered honestly, "I think she loved the version of us that made her feel special. But when that faded, she walked away." Mason nodded, his voice steady. "I don't miss her." He paused. "I miss who she pretended to be." That night back home, a cheap bouquet of supermarket flowers sat on their porch. No note, just silence wrapped in cellophane. Ethan tossed them straight into the trash. Later, his inbox pinged. A message from Mr. Gaines. Attached, a photo from the private investigator Ethan had quietly hired weeks ago. Brandon at dinner with another woman. Same restaurant he used to take Scarlett to. Same smug posture. Karma had a schedule, and it was early. Ethan didn't forward the picture to Scarlett. He didn't need to. Instead, he sent her one message. "Your fairy tale is cracking. Stay close to home this week." 10 minutes later, a reply. "What the hell are you talking about?" Ethan didn't answer, just left it on read. Because the game had changed. Scarlett thought she could blow up a family and walk away untouched. But Ethan wasn't playing defense anymore. Now, he was rewriting the ending. The following week felt different. Not lighter, not easier, just real. There were no surprise visits, no manipulative texts, no lipstick-stained guilt dropped at their doorstep. Scarlett faded like a bad memory that stopped echoing. Ethan no longer walked on eggshells in his own home. He cooked dinner without glancing over his shoulder. Mason began sleeping through the night. No more pacing the halls. No more flinching when the doorbell rang. Peace wasn't loud, it was subtle. Mason laughed more. He ate more. He hummed while brushing his teeth. That small sound felt like a full symphony to Ethan. They were healing. One afternoon, while cleaning out the hallway closet, Ethan found an old leather photo album. Covered in dust, tucked behind winter coats that hadn't been touched since Scarlett's departure. Later that night, Mason found it on the coffee table. He sat down beside Ethan and opened it slowly. There they were, frozen smiles, blurry birthday candles, hospital wristbands, beach trips, moments from another life. Mason pointed to a photo of his 5th birthday. Frosting on his nose, Scarlett kissing his cheek, Ethan holding them both. "Do you think she ever looks at these?" he asked. Ethan didn't answer right away. Then softly, "I think she does, and I think she realizes what she lost." Mason nodded, quiet, then whispered, "She used to be good." Ethan placed a hand on his shoulder. "People change, sometimes for the better, sometimes into someone we don't recognize." Mason looked at him, his voice steady now. "I'm glad you didn't change." Ethan smiled. "I did. I just didn't break." That weekend, they went hiking. No phones, no distractions, just 2 boots on dirt trails, the wind in the trees, and the kind of silence that meant safety, not fear. They talked about the future, college, road trips, maybe even getting a dog. And for the first time in a long, long while, Ethan realized something. He hadn't just survived. He'd rebuilt, not for revenge, not for closure, but for something far more powerful, for peace. You let them go. Ethan's story isn't just about betrayal or heartbreak, it's about rebirth. It's about learning that when someone chooses to leave, they've already shown you who they are. And you don't need to chase closure when peace is found in stillness, not answers. He could have begged, he could have crumbled, but instead, he chose dignity. And in doing so, he taught his son the most powerful lesson of all, that love should never feel like survival. You don't have to compete with someone else to be enough. You already are. If you're reading this while sitting in the ruins of a relationship that broke you, listen carefully. You are not weak for hurting. You are not less because someone couldn't see your worth. But you are powerful for standing back up. Start small. Clean one room. Turn off your phone. Take a walk without checking if they've called. Write down one thing you love about yourself every morning. You don't need revenge. You don't need them to finally realize. What you need is yaokid, present, honest, healing. And if you have a child watching, even more reason to rise. Show them what resilience looks like. Show them that endings can be the beginning of something better. If you enjoy deep, emotional, and meaningful stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new update. Your support is the motivation that drives us to keep bringing you powerful stories. Once again, thank you for being here, and see you in the next story.